I mean, let's be honest, it was only a matter of time before this happened. It's not just YouTubers calling out Ruby anymore, it's not just the audience calling out Ruby anymore, it's her own family, her sister, her brother, all coming out and voicing their opinions on Ruby's disgusting actions, and it turns out, they're not happy either. Finally, it has happened, okay? The 8 passengers' parents, Ruby and Kevin Frank, finally regret something. They've looked back at their previous actions and they've said, you know what? I don't agree with that anymore. I'm a changed person. Now at this point you might be thinking, what have they said in the past that was so bad that even they are taking it back? Even they think that was a bit dodgy. Well, it actually came from their Facebook group where someone has asked a question saying, on an 8 Passengers vlog, Ruby and Kevin answered some questions from the viewers and said they supported the LGBTQ community and said their kids do as well. Is that still relevant? To which Ruby gracefully acknowledged this previous statement and said this. I remember that video. I filmed a Q&A video in early 2019. If you recall, I dodged the question, leading you to believe something I wasn't courageous enough to denounce. I said I watched neighbours and their children be a part of the LGBT community, and I said I thought it was beautiful. Fast forward 3 years, I see where those children are now. They are miserable, they are depressed. I'm sorry, what? So you're telling me the only time that Ruby Frank has taken back something she previously said or done was the time that she said the LGBTQ community was beautiful? Yeah, I'm not exactly surprised, to be fair. The parents spend their days worrying if the child is going to live or die. Do they? No matter how accepting the parents have been, those children are not happy. Accepted or not, they still want to kill themselves? I'm sorry, what is going on here? I think she's genuinely lost the plot. Like, there's something clearly not right in her brain, and we need to figure it out. Well, there you have it. Ruby actually regrets something she said previously in the video, and it just so happens to be the only time she said something thoughtful. Big shock, eh? But you know what? Since this is hopefully going to be my last video on the 8 Passengers channel for a good while now before they inevitably do something ridiculous again, like ban their kids from drinking water, I've actually took it upon myself to try and find answers for previous questions we've had about the 8 Passengers parents, like why their family no longer speak to them anymore. And it turns out we actually have a lot of answers. Answers from Ruby's own siblings, and it turns out that Jodi Hildebrandt, who Ruby now works with connections, might have a big factor to play in this. Now, we are going to get into that mess later in the video and also look at what the Connections Facebook page has been up to since I last made my video, but before we do that, subscribe, will ya? I mean, I never really mentioned this in videos, but if you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Just wait till I find out who you are. I'll take a page out of Ruby's book and I'll tell your parents that they shouldn't love you. You wouldn't like that, would you? Now, that previous comment I read out from Ruby Frank talking about the LGBTQ community was actually from a video where someone has asked a question to Connections. Long story short, their child has came out as non-binary and for some reason they've decided to go to Jodi and Ruby for advice, which is never a good idea. And here we have Jodi Hildebrandt's answer, which you can probably imagine is going to be full of facts.
The issue is that this particular human, this child who's come to you saying, I'm non-binary, has been acting out in distortion for quite some time.
Okay, so this already sounds like every other answer Jodi and Ruby have given on this page, but let's just weigh up the options here. Like, who is actually causing more damage to the world? A child who wants to identify as non-binary, or Jodi Hildebrandt, who has a Facebook group full of thousands of mothers and is basically telling them all to not love their children for who they are and to just make them miserable instead? Like, I wonder who I'd rather be.
And it's just the popular thing today to pick your flavor of sexual deviancy. I'm very aware that people will hear that and say, oh my goodness, you are so offensive.
Oh my god, look at her fucking smile, man. She's a witch. I'm telling you, she is a witch. Now, the reason why people might tell you that is offensive is because it's obviously not true. You are clear proof as to why that's not true. It's not the popular thing to identify as non-binary or trans because there's so many people like Jodi who are so against it. So it's not just the popular thing that people are doing, and even if it was, I just don't get what it matters to Jodi. Like, what does it change in your life? I don't understand. Why do you care so much that you have to post on Facebook groups telling people how bad it is? It just makes no sense to me.
People who choose to be offended are the ones that actually are living in distortion. That's how you can see them.
Just like you're clearly offended by anybody who disagrees with you. Like the fact you even made this video, you're offended by people's existence. What a sad way to live.
So when Ruby and I respond in text threads on Moms of Truth, you see their reaction. Every one of them gets reactionary when they ask a loaded question that's full of distortion, and one of us comes back with something that's quite reasonable, polite.
Reasonable and polite, is that what we call it nowadays? Telling a mother that their child is living in distortion and that you need to change them just because they've came out as gay, or they're transgender, they're non-binary. It's not very polite, is it? Like, that's not the word I would use personally.
And invariably, they react, and we see their reaction, and then they're removed from the group.
Yes, that would be me. Now, to be fair, I didn't say anything in the text threads. I just made a video about it, which they clearly weren't happy with. But we don't need to sit and look through this whole video because we've seen pretty much this exact same opinion over and over again. I just wanted to see if they were being a bit more reasonable nowadays, which obviously they're not. Also, I saw this pop up on Reddit the other day, and it's a video uploaded to the Connections YouTube channel that has now been deleted, but it was called Raising Children in the Hood. Yep. You heard that right. Ruby Frank, you know, the very, very rich mother who has lived a life of privilege, decided to make a video titled Raising Children in the Hood. And this is an advice video. What advice are you gonna give? She's actually lost the plot. She's genuinely a full-on nutter. And this is where it gets a bit sad, actually, because this whole Connections YouTube channel and the way that Ruby and Jodi have decided to change their opinions on life has fully ruined their family. We've actually knew this for quite a while because Ruby's siblings used to do videos with Ruby all the time, and then all of a sudden, all the siblings are still doing videos, but Ruby and Kevin aren't in them. So people obviously started speculating, wondering why, and then in my previous video, we looked at a video that was deleted from the Connections YouTube channel where Kevin goes on to talk about the siblings and the rest of the family.
Every one of these items was in that dynamic. This will come up, I'm sure, several times during this workshop, but the games that we play when we're all together and we pretend to be all lovey-dovey, we pretend to be all connected and happy, and then as soon as we're apart and behind closed doors, the knives come out. And there's the blaming and the hiding and the secrets. There's all of the saying I will do one thing and then doing another, sort of breaking of commitments, the hiding of facts or the hiding of aspects, all of this, all of these points that you've listed here, honestly, I think you could take one of those points and kind of make them the umbrella over all of them, and that point is control.
Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, we actually have a response from the family, because there's a YouTube channel called Daru Crew Vlogs, which is actually run by Ruby's sister. And in the comments of their videos, they've been answering a lot of questions about Ruby and Kevin and why they no longer speak to the family. Does your family still have a relationship to Ruby and her family? I haven't seen her at any of your holiday festivities with all of your other family. Just curious if something happened. To which Julie, Ruby's sister, replied saying, Ruby has chosen to distance herself. Hopefully one day she will come around. Then we've got another comment here saying, so sad to hear about Ruby distancing herself from the rest of the family, but honestly I'm not surprised. She is absolutely brainwashed with the Connections cult. Very scary, sending love to you. And then Julie's actually liked that comment. And then we got a response from Julie referencing Connections, and it says, Connections has torn our family apart. It is not a good group to be affiliated with, and hopefully one day she will realise it. And bear in mind, this is Ruby's sister talking here, okay? Ruby's own family doesn't like the Facebook group, doesn't like the fact that Ruby and Jodi are making these horrible claims. And then we've also got this interesting comment that was liked by Julie, and it says, I just came from Connections YouTube channel, and I must say from the bottom of my heart how sorry I am for your family. Their content is so devastating and damaging for the children and everyone involved. I really hope Ruby comes to her senses one day. Bo must feel so betrayed by Ruby's close relationship with Jodi, given that Jodi broke her confidentiality agreement with Bo, especially when he was in such a vulnerable state in the first place. Now, when I read this, it got me thinking, because obviously in my previous video, we spoke about how Jodi has went against her confidentiality agreement in the past. We even looked at this article that says a porn addiction therapist has been reprimanded by the state for discussing a patient without his permission, with his LDS church leaders in Brigham Young University. And because of Jodi discussing her patient without his permission, and completely lying about him, by the way, say she was actually put on probation for 18 months and had to face 22 conditions or she could lose her license. And it even says because of the claims that were false, it led to him losing his privileges in the church and his ejection from BYU. And then here's a quote from the guy involved, and it says, "She hardly spent any time knowing about my life. She didn't want to talk about my personal goals or my progress. She would only threaten me that if I didn't take more sessions and have my wife take more sessions, the alleged addiction would destroy my life." So she not only lied about this guy, she even tried blackmailing him to purchase more sessions that sometimes would cost him $2,000 a month. So after I read the article and read the YouTube comment, I was like, oh shit, so Jodi hasn't just done this to one person, she's also done it to multiple, it seems, even Ruby's own family. And then this is where I found a review that was posted for Connections a year ago by Bo himself. I'm very concerned that what I've shared gets gossiped about among others. I've scheduled an appointment that was cancelled without informing me. Jodi ignores my request for a receipt of services. So this is Ruby's brother a year ago who was paying Jodi for some form of therapy or counselling, and he's even concerned that Jodi is sharing his private information, the same thing that she nearly lost her license over. And then fast forward a year, Ruby and Jodi seem to be best pals, they run Connections together, and because of this, Ruby no longer speaks to anyone in the family, including Bo, I'm assuming. Now when I first started talking about Connections and the YouTube channel and the Facebook page and whatnot, it seemed a bit funny in the sense of the claims were so ridiculous and it was so easy to make jokes and just talk about how stupid the things that they're saying are. But now the more and more we talk about it, it's actually really sad. It's ruined a family, which is ironic because the whole page is them trying to ruin other people's families with their awful advice, and it turns out they've only went and ruined their own. So I would love to know your thoughts on this whole 8 passages rabbit hole. It's went a lot further than I ever thought it would, and yeah, it's a bit mental, isn't it? But if you did enjoy this video, please do leave a like down below, subscribe if you are new as well. If you want to let me know topics to talk about in future videos, the best way to do it is on my Instagram. It's @MARKIE, it's always linked in the description. And I guess until next one, I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, goodbye.